Hello and welcome to Coffee's on My Mind and our new project, Coffee With, where we listen to stories of everyday people with the intention to learn, be inspired, and empower. Hello and welcome to part 2 of Coffee With Beserat Debebe, creator and founder of Etan Comics, a home for African superheroes. If you missed part 1, check out the links below. And also, if you want to jump to part 3, check out the links below. In addition, don't forget to check out Beserat's website, etancomics.com, as well as the link for his Kickstarter campaign. All of that is down below. I bumped the microphone. I hope that's okay. Let's get on with the interview. See you there. How do you like to say your comic book company?
So it's Etan Comics, but like a lot of people say
Etan.
Etan, which is just fine. So the word Etan it means incense in Amharic, right?
Yeah.
So the name kind of originated because for me, having an Orthodox background and even just within Ethiopian traditions, whenever there's incense around, there's a good aroma around. There's always entertainment around. It's just always reminds you of just having such a good time, and so I just named. It was actually like my cousin kind of guided me to come up with that name, and I said, oh wow, that's a fantastic name, because that's exactly the feeling I want for people whoever come to our company, to our brand, and looks at our books, our stories. I want them to feel good. I want them to say, oh yeah, I know I'm getting something good out of them. So that's why it's called Etan Comics.
So I see you have a few comics that are
Yes.
already published. So
Sure.
yeah, tell me
Let
about
me
those.
actually even show you. I had like so this here. This is Jember issue
Hey,
number one, and this is the first.
that's the one that's gonna. Is that the first issue in plastic? Is gonna be worth like $1 million in like
I hope
10 years or
man. I
something?
hope so. So this is the first book that we published, the one I was just telling you about. 2017, I wrote this book, and I tried to find an artist that can help me. And one of the difficulties I had at the time, I really wanted Ethiopian artists to work on these books, but with the realization that nothing like this existed, came the realization that nobody was working in the comic book industry, no artist. So
Mm,
exactly,
that's
that's
Ethiopian,
Ethiopian.
right?
They were talented
Right.
artists, they were exceptional artists, but they didn't understand the comic book media, and they weren't working inside of it. And so they were all doing like portrait art, and they didn't know how to do sequential storytelling. Comic book is basically panel, 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 and you're telling a story. It's like movies, but via books. It's not just like one portrait
Right.
art.
Right.
And so then I started expanding my search towards, all right, the next best person that can depict these stories the way I want them, if they're not Ethiopian, are other African artists. And so I said, okay, let me expand my search to other African artists. And lo and behold, I find amazing Nigerian artists, and that Nigerians have actually been working in African, kind of trying to inspire other African artists and after African creators to do comic books on their own. I hope that feedback. I'll just let that pass.
Just hold on for a second. Stick it
Yeah,
there.
so I find Nigerian artists that are phenomenal with what they do, and I pitched Stanley Obinde. That's my artist to this day. The story, and I said, hey, I would love your help with this. And this is something new, something nobody has done. And what do you think? And we had a video chat. He's based in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm based in Connecticut at the time, and he said, "All right, let's do it." And so we did it, and man, like it's been a wild ride since then. So a lot of lessons, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of good, a lot of not so good, but it's been so much fun, and to this day, me and Stan are just like that. Like we've never met
Oh,
in
nice.
person. We've seen each other like through video chat, but we work flawlessly now. We've kind of got it down to a science. Yeah.
That is cool. So you have an
Yeah.
artist. That's awesome. Uh, and it seems like you have a few other people
Yes.
on your team doing
That's
other
right.
things. Yeah.
So whenever you make a comic, the people, the team that's required, it's like usually like around 5 people. And the first is the writer or the storyteller, the one who creates the characters. That's my role. And then there's the line artist. That's Stan, the one I just told you about. He does pencils, he does the sketches, and he inks them. Right? He inks them,
Okay.
makes it clean. And then after that, we pass it on to the colorist, who colors the page. And for us, that would be Toyin Najetun Mobi, another fellow Nigerian artist. And then there's the letterer, who puts in the dialogue into the page, onto the page. For that, Stan actually does that as well. And then there's the editor, who would review all the like content, make sure nothing is out of place, make sure that no dialogue is not like, basically you want to aim for the appropriate age you are communicating with, right? So, the editor is the
Okay.
one who oversees all of these things, the important aspects of the book, puts it together, and kind of just gives, makes corrections, like gives feedback to the artists and to the writer, just feedback. And that's my wife, Beza, that helps me out whenever she can. And but that's the 5 of us. And then outside of that, marketing wise and other kind of distribution wise, there's of course these tangential points that I kind of touch on other people for, but the core team, the creative team, are those 5 people that I just told you.
Tell me. So I think you have two superheroes at this point. I'm not
Yes,
sure.
that's right.
Uh, and so tell me about your. I think if it's two, if it's more, tell me. But I
Yes,
believe you have two.
yes.
There it
So
is.
a year after we published Jember, and what happened was there was a huge reception, right? We got featured on like BBC. We got featured on like Haile Gebrselassie start like shouted us in and yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, wow, like this is not what I expected, but this is way more like better than what I expected. And then there became calls to like, hey, you should also create a girl superhero storyline. And at the time, I was a little bit scared because I was like, I didn't want it to be inauthentic. Like, several characters that we know today as like the best, girl characters, like Storm or Shuri or, all these characters, when they first came out, they were okay, right? They weren't that like phenomenal book. Why? Because they are written by men, and they didn't have the
Right.
authentic perspective. And I was afraid I would fall for that trap. And so I was being very critical at the time. I was kind of pushing it a little bit along. But then I said, all right, I'm going to just have Beza, my wife, be heavily involved in critiquing me, in editing it, and telling me no girl would say that, like, yeah,
That would be
yeah, this
happening.
wouldn't happen, right? And like even like attire wise, like attire choice wise, like that's uncomfortable. Nobody would wear that to battle, like things like just common sense that I think that some male authors, men, would not take into consideration when they first write. So because of that, so with her help, I started writing Howie, and we put it on Kickstarter the following year, and we blew the goal out the park. Our funding goal was I think around 3,000 or 4,000. We raised like 12,000, like 300%, and
Awesome.
I couldn't believe the amount of positive response. It was even way more than the first series, the Jember series that we created. And this is the first book, Howie, right here. All our books are published in English and Amharic, and I think I've told you this before. I mean, I would love to publish them in more languages. It's not that I only want them in English and Amharic. I just only speak English and Amharic. So I chose those two.
Right.
And since then we've published three issues of Jember 1, 2, and 3, and then two issues of Hawi issue 1 and Hawi issue 2. We've also made sure that those stories are in the same universe. Like, for example, Marvel, as you know, has Spider-Man and Captain America. All of them at one universe. They intersect. Their stories build off of each other. So it's the same way
Okay.
with Jember and
Yeah.
Hawi. It's kind of like one expanding universe. And so it's very interesting to juggle that type of writing. I'll be honest, it's hard, but it's also fun because it engages people at different levels, and it makes you want to read more. It makes you want to discover more about Ethiopian history, Ethiopian mythologies, and just the Ethiopian culture in general. So those are the two books we have so far.
Yeah, I signed up for your newsletter and I got the free 12
Awesome.
pages and was reading it last night. And I love that you straight up, I mean, I think the Ethiopians can relate straight up. You're at the Sheraton, right? And I'm like, oh, there's the Sheraton. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
and for those of you that haven't been to Ethiopia, the Sheraton is like a focal
Yeah.
point in Addis for several reasons, and so it makes total sense that you would throw that in the story. It was like, oh, of course, and so it's pretty exciting. God, I have so many questions. So for starters, I'm super excited about this. So the book that just came out is a hardcover edition of Jember, correct? So tell me about that book and what's going on with it. You've got a Kickstarter campaign and all that.
Yes. So what we're doing right now, this is a very special culmination event that we're doing, which is, so far, as I told you, we've published three issues of Jember. There's Jember issue 1, 2, and 3, and they're published at individual books. I'm just gonna quickly show you. So this is number 1 right here, and this is number 2, and this is number 3. And what we're doing right now is we have issue 4 ready, and we are combining issues 1, 2, and 3 all into one book and changing them to hardcover, and so you can basically binge read all of them and have behind the scenes package included in the book. And we also have a foreword by Maaza Mengiste, the Booker Prize nominated author of Shadow King. She wrote a foreword for us. So we are putting it all together in one gorgeous hardcover book and putting it out. This is the book that's going to be basically in bookstores, in the market. This is the one that we are going to widely distribute. It's a 112-page book. And to tell you a little bit about Jember's story for me it's about finding your self-worth and letting go of what other people think of you. And let me tell you how that came about. When I first started writing Jember, I was thinking a lot about my family back home in Ethiopia, and especially the young ones, my cousins, and I have many that are at a stage where they've done great in school, they graduated, but they have no job.
Right.
Why do they not have a job? Because the opportunities are so small, but the demand is so high, right? So what they would do is they would either have side businesses, or they would kind of pull their money together to do something together. They still live at home. And all these emotions, right? When you are somebody who knows you can do well, you've proven that in school, but you get out into the real world and nobody's willing to hire you, give you opportunities, and you're living at home, you start to feel hopeless, you start to feel worthless, and it feels very tough on your kind of mentality, spirituality, and you start to doubt your self-worth. And so I was thinking a lot about all of that stuff, and thinking about, well, how do you define your self-worth when you're in this environment? How do you let go of what other people think of you, how other people see you when you are in this environment, and still be living a happy life, a thriving, successful life. And so that's how Jember got born. I took this guy, his name is Emmanuel Kalahun. He's jobless, he's desperate for a job, he can't find a job, he's anxious, he's ready to even leave the city behind. He's like trying to apply for a visa, looking for opportunities. And then all of a sudden, he gets superpowers. So now what? What do you do? Do you go and help this city that has treated you like a nobody and now even sees you as a threat? Because superheroes are kind of like voodoo there, like for a spiritual conservative society. When you see somebody with like powers, you're like, just leave me alone. You're more of a threat for me than help.
Right.
So when you are being treated like that and you've been treated like a nobody for basically most of your adult life, do you have the liberty to just say, you know what, I'm not going to try and be a hero. I'm just going to save myself. I'm going to help myself, and I'm going to define my own self-worth this way. So this is what Jember's story is about. You kind of get to see the journey of this guy, Emmanuel, through his like worries, his anxieties, and his change through this like superpowers and what it means to him, and then how he learns and how he defines self-worth for himself.
Man, I love that, especially because it's so relatable to so many people across the world today, and it's so cool that you chose that as a storyline because, especially right now, you have the pandemic and things got shut down and all that stuff. And there's a lot of people who, us included, our industry basically got shut down. And so you go through this moment of like, well, what's important to me, and hopefully people can get to the other side of that, and get to what is important to them, because that's the beauty of being in a situation like this, is that you actually have the time to figure out what's important to you, that's awesome that you chose that. So
it's hard too, right? It's hard to figure that out, especially when you're constantly worried and anxious about your next source of money, your next source of safety, right?
your next meal,
Exactly. It's really hard,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
thinking about these, almost like they feel these philosophical like identity. Like when you say, "Oh, defining my self-worth, I'm hungry now."
right. That's myself.
I don't have time for that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm worth a meal right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the hardcover is going to be the first 3, right?
It includes the new one too,
Okay.
number 4.
Okay, so you get
Yes.
the bonus of the new issue. And
Yeah, the bonus of the new issue and like behind the scenes packages and all these things at the after end, so you can see how the magic is made.
And that's on the Kickstarter campaign. So
Yeah.
what is, I guess I'm not totally familiar with Kickstarter, but I guess you kind of put out an asking price or something like that, and then
So Kickstarter is like a pre-ordering platform, basically.
okay.
Right? What you do is it's a support platform for creators. You go on there. If you like the creator that you are, if you want that book that creator created to be published, to be printed, what the creator would do is say, "Hey, I've done the art for this book. All I need is to print this book and ship it out to you. And so if you pre-order ahead of time, I'll get that money that I need to print the books." So you come on the Kickstarter, you pre-order on the tier you want, and once the Kickstarter is over and it's funded, the author or the creator prints the book and ships you the book.
Right on. Hey, it's me again, BB. I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Beserat Debebe. This concludes part 2. If you want to see part 3, please click on the link down below for part 3 of the video. That in part 3, we get into the Ethiopian coffee ceremony, so don't miss out on that. Also, we talk about the future of African superheroes and chained art. Links are down below. We'll see you in part 3.